Thank you for watching my presentation on curriculum review and analysis. My name is Cheryl Ingerson. I am currently working on my Alt-A Master's degree in Education with a concentration in Social Sciences. I hope to teach U.S. History. For this presentation, I examine U.S. History for 11th grade. For this presentation, I will examine state standards, curriculum goals, teachers' input on the curriculum, national test scores, and recommendations from teachers. For today's classrooms, to accomplish all students need, schools and teachers will have to adopt learning strategies and a curriculum that brings our classrooms into the 21st century. To review the curriculum standards, I will examine different visions for curriculum, standards for the curriculum, the verbs that are used in our state standards versus verbs that are recommended. Next, we'll examine teaching with technology and how to integrate it. And lastly, we'll look into diversity and the recommendations for the classroom and conclusions on how we can achieve these goals. To analyze Alabama state standards, first we must look at what their goals are. They describe the goals of social studies curriculum to provide Alabama students and teachers with a curriculum that contains content designed to promote competence in areas of economics, geography, history, civics, and government, with an emphasis on responsible citizenship. The focus is to enable students to become literate, analytical thinkers who are capable of making informed decisions about the world and the people in it, while preparing them to participate responsibly in society at a local, a state, a national, and international level. More specifically, under the U.S. History goals for 11th grade, Alabama State says a student will benefit from a classroom environment that provides activities to facilitate historical inquiry. They want teachers to challenge students with a variety of instructional methods. This will enhance the development of critical thinking skills. They recommend methods including analysis of historical documents, map reading activities, creative problem-solving simulations, and the use of technology. They encourage students to explore historical topics and to continue thinking like a historian while studying key events, people, and ideas of American history. They recognize an important part of the content of the course is for the students to be able to understand the importance of learning history and have a deeper understanding of history by using the skills recommended. Many times in the goals, the idea of responsible citizenship is mentioned. The standards for social studies is broken down into 16 areas with a list of topics to be addressed to meet each standard. It does not actually address in the state standards responsible citizenship at all. It gives no idea where they want this thought to develop or in what topics you should include. The National Curriculum Standards for Social Studies, which is called NCSS, says the aim of their social studies framework is to promote civic competence, knowledge, intellectual processes, and democratic dispositions that develop students so they can be active and engaged participants in the public life. Their statement is the primary purpose of social studies is to help young people make informed and reasoned decisions for the public good as citizens of a culturally diverse, democratic society. They point out their curriculum is to provide a framework for professional deliberation and planning about what should occur in a social studies program. They recommend state and local education departments use their standards to review and evaluate their curriculum. They recommend local organizations use their standards to design professional development programs for teachers and encourage teachers to look through the instructions as well. They point out the civic mission of social studies requires more than an acquisition of content. They say social studies' primary goal is to develop a democratic citizenry. So they want students to have in their social studies classroom a way that enables them to engage in civil discourse, problem solving, and take informed civil action. Local curriculum leaders say their goal is to have a civics education which is personalized and uses responsive teaching and meaningful assessments to create an engaged classroom and develop democratic students. Local teachers say they focus on the big picture, helping students understand why what they're learning is important and relevant to today, the goal being in the classroom to develop reasoned, thinking, educated citizens. In 1956, Benjamin Bloom, along with other collaborators, came up with a framework for verbs. This identified higher order thinking skills. It became known as Bloom's taxonomy. It consists of 6 major categories: remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create, with the lower level thinking skills at the bottom and the higher order thinking skills at the top. Our curriculum needs to be designed to build these higher order thinking skills. The Alabama standards throughout their online goals for the topics use verbs like explaining, determining, comparing, describing, identifying. Each one of these is located in the lower order learning skills. Every once in a while, you see interpreting, assessing, and very rarely you see evaluate and analyze, with create barely being used. If we look at Bloom's taxonomy, Alabama State current curriculum standards don't develop our students high enough into the evaluation and creation stages. To develop well-rounded, reasoning, critical thinking, educated students, we need to make sure their education reaches that upper level. The NCSS designed their recommendations for critical thinking skills into several topics. One moves directly into the next. They want students to be able to locate information, from the goals being able to use libraries, online search tools, tables, and other sources of information in the community. They want students to be able to explore information, learn how to use the relevant parts of text, conduct interviews, evaluate information, maps, globes, interpret social studies and political messages from cartoons, interpret history through artifacts. They want students to be able to organize information to usable forms, constructing outlines, making summaries, compiling bibliographies, and preparing to organize information and utilize tools and resources, to manage communication and information using online resources, to analyze, problem solve, and they want to make sure students have the capability to interpret information. They need to be able to draw inference from factual material, predict outcomes, recognize and interpret different points of view, recognizing instances where there's more than one interpretation is valid, and be able to transfer knowledge into new context. They want students to be able to analyze information for the simple organization of key ideas, separate topics into major components, examine relationships. They want the student to be able to synthesize information, propose a new plan or scheme based on available data, reinterpret events by relating knowledge from different sources. Lastly, they want students to be able to evaluate information. They want students to determine whether or not sources are valid. They want them to be able to use criteria of a source, check it for correctness, understand legal and ethical issues, relate to the assessment of use of that information. If you'll notice, the NCSS designs their framework straight through Bloom's taxonomy, the goal being exactly what they said it is, to create an informed, critical thinking, active citizen. The teachers interviewed recognized and emphasized the important role critical thinking made in their lesson plans. The primary focus not on specific dates, but more on the large questions about what the events of these dates mean and how they're relevant to today. Emphasizing again to keep history relevant for students, real and applicable to today, is what keeps students engaged and develops the higher order thinking. The state standards, although mentioning technology, never specifically give any direction on how to incorporate technology into a lesson plan. NCSS addresses technology needs and standards, saying that it has to be incorporated into the culture of the classroom, and even listed as one of the key 8 themes of a classroom. They recognize students today are growing in a world where mobile connectivity is interactive, instantaneous, and everywhere. They discuss the importance of preparing digital citizens, recognizing social studies and its integrative nature allows exploration of the human experience across time and place. They recommend a dramatic shift in the nature of information and knowledge and recommend adapting media literacy and related skills. This requires rethinking social studies learning in a 21st century, yet they still don't give specific examples of how to do that. To get specific answers on how to integrate technology into a classroom, I had to read education publications online, like Education Weekly. I came across an article from 2019 that addresses the questions, what are effective ways to use technology in a social studies classroom? The column presented several different teachers' ideas on proper incorporation. One of the responses from Sarah Cooper, who teaches 8th grade history. She discusses the use of video clips, photos, but recommends the best technology students can use is technology that allows them to create and engage. She recognizes 3 possibilities of this as snazzy presentations, interactive boards, and participating in peer reviews. Ken Holla, who was a PhD in e-learning coordinator, discussed that you should not start your lesson plan by asking, what technology can I use, but plan your lesson plan and then find how to incorporate technology into what you already have planned. He recommends programs like Google Forms that allow you to make entrance tickets, surveys, and other types of ideas. He discusses videos, even allowing the students to watch that at home so that you can participate in an activity during class time. He discusses things like Crash Course on YouTube or other U.S. history videos. He also talks about Screencast, letting your students make their own YouTube playlist to help get them more engaged and working in the environment. He stresses the importance of technology assisting your learning, not driving it. I did talk to local teachers. They all said they incorporate technology or hands-on in their programs, but it comes from outside sources, not from the curriculum they have. They spoke of incorporating current information and relevant programs into the topics they are discussing here, and again, the goal being to make it real, relevant, to keep the student engaged. The state standard and goals do not speak of diversity. It is just now being incorporated into standards and goals of curriculum. We need to start looking at diversity as an asset instead of a liability, which is still a fairly new concept. To accomplish this, we must recognize that diverse groups of thought, culture, and traits are a positive thing to our classrooms. This allows for a more diverse discussion. It allows different viewpoints from different places and helps us see things from another perspective. Instead of looking at what a student lacks, look at the value of having students for what they bring. Instead of focusing on what the student needs to work on, focus on their talents. Diversity and differences should be celebrated rather than overcome. By building relationships and allowing for a variety of cultural differences, we develop students who are ready to engage in the world we now have. When speaking to the curriculum designers, they mentioned the challenge of meeting the needs that come with having a culturally diverse student base. It is imperative for school systems to address the needs that diversity creates. When speaking to teachers locally, they discussed the challenges of having a diverse student population and not always having the tools needed nor the curriculum designed to help meet the challenges they face in the classroom. To look at the national scores, I looked at the Nations Report Card, which is called NAEP. It is the preeminent national exam for K through 12 students, releasing semi-regular scores on the 4th, 8th, and 12th grade in the range of academic disciplines. They found that 8th graders posted lower scores in geography, civics, and U.S. history in 2018 than they did 4 years earlier. The Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, said this was alarming. She called it stark and inexcusable. She went on to say, a quarter or more of America's 8th graders are what NAEP defines as below basic in U.S. history, civics, and geography. In the real world, this means students don't know what the Lincoln-Douglas debate was about, nor can they discuss the significance of the Bill of Rights or point out basic locations on a map. America's antiquated approach to education is creating a generation of future leaders who will not have the foundational understanding of what makes this country exceptional. We cannot continue to excuse this problem away. Instead, we need to fundamentally rethink education in America. It is the only way our nation's students will be in a position to lead our nation and the world. The local curriculum interviewees discussed that social studies is on the list, but the curriculum will not come up for review for a few years while they handle reading and math. When interviewing the teachers, they had several key concerns about curriculum, standards, or just teaching practices. The first teacher discussed her class was made to build on knowledge students had already learned from another class. She said she spent much of her time reteaching this material because the students didn't actually retain the information. Another teacher discussed a concern for her class. It's primarily for students that are college bound, not having practical applications for the students who are going straight into the workforce. Another teacher noted that he didn't actually even use the textbook designed for his class from the state. He used his own hands-on lesson plans he's designed through the years to keep it activity-based. The tenure system was also looked at. It was discussed that the issues with ever-changing technology can create a teacher whose original education is no longer needed or may have drastically changed. I thought a good example of this is like I took typing in my 11th grade year. That class would definitely no longer be necessary in today's classroom. This brings up the last thing I interviewed the teachers about, and that was professional training. All the teachers I interviewed have taken additional classes, seminars, or some type of training, all of whom paid for their own training themselves. One teacher said he continuously focuses on reading and creating new knowledge so that he can integrate this into his class, hoping this will keep the students engaged. ALEKS is the state-provided lesson plans. If we develop more technology-based examples, it would help teachers who do not have as much experience learn how to design lessons that integrate technology. This would be a good option until the curriculum needs are addressed. Another thing I discovered was not all schools have the same technology. The one parent I interviewed says her children are allowed to use whatever technology they have. She has one high school student who uses a computer and a lower school student who uses their phone. The teachers all had access to smart boards and computers, but some still have internet issues. One is on a new LMS system and still trying to learn it. As the United States continues to become more diverse, we need practical curriculum instruction to engage any student where they're at. If it is more class options, move at your own pace programs, or something like that. We need to quickly address the weaknesses in our classrooms to not only improve scores, but to help students transition into society better. What I found was the ideas that are currently being discussed and integrated into our classrooms are not new ideas, yet technology and learning strategies have still not made it into every classroom, into the state standards and curriculum. I found that writing state standards, choosing curriculum, and training teachers must go hand in hand to accomplish the needs of the 21st century student. To accomplish this, it is imperative that we go beyond memorization skills and literacy skills into critical thinking skills and develop learning strategies to actually achieve the Alabama state goal of developing responsible citizens who are analytical thinkers, capable of making informed decisions about the world and its people, and preparing them to participate responsibly in our society locally, in our state, in our nation, and on this globe. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and these are my references.